If your life keeps repeating the same frustrations, the same limits, the same invisible ceiling, it's not chance, it's not bad luck, it's your standard. The world doesn't reward desire, it responds to what you allow, and what you allow is shaped by the standard you demand from yourself. That's the truth most people never face. They wish for better, but tolerate less. They dream of more, yet live aligned with less. But here's the breakthrough. When you raise your standard, you raise your life. Your thinking sharpens, your actions tighten, your environment transforms. Shift your standard, and the world around you shifts with it. The life you live today is not the result of fate. It is the mirror of what you've accepted. You don't rise to your wishes, you fall to what you tolerate. A man who accepts average is not doomed. He has simply stopped reaching, not because greatness was out of reach, but because his standard let go of the climb. A standard isn't just a preference, it's a declaration, a line in the sand where you say, this is who I am, this is where I rise, and this is what I will not sink beneath. Raise that line, and your life elevates with it. Lower it or let it slide, and so goes your path. Raising your standard doesn't begin with grand gestures. It starts in the quiet. It starts in your morning, in the way you keep your space, in the integrity of your word, in whether or not you follow through when no one is watching. You cannot lead a movement if you cannot lead your day. Picture this. A man who wakes before the sun, irons his shirt, and writes down the 3 things he will conquer, not for applause, not for attention, but because that is his code, that is who he is. Now compare him to the one who stumbles into the day, reacting to life instead of creating it. One walks with power, the other drifts. Ask yourself honestly, what have you been tolerating that should have ended long ago? What people around you coddle your excuses instead of sharpen your strength? What if you simply declared, no more? What if today you set a new standard and lived by it? Your life bends toward the standard you choose. Bend it upward and everything follows. Standards are not based on motivation. They are forged from identity. A man who lives by motivation is a slave to emotion, but a man of standard is a force, unmoved by feeling, anchored by principle. We're taught to think success comes from inspiration, but that's the lie. True success isn't birthed in comfort. It is built in identity. In those private moments where you decide, this is who I am, even when no one is watching, even when the payoff is invisible, you become who you are through repetition, by keeping promises, by standing tall when it would be easier to fold. Choose one standard and make it your signature. I do not quit. I keep my word. I enter every room with purpose. Let that be the armor you wear. Imagine the carpenter. Every morning he sharpens his tools, not because he's told to, but because dull blades build crooked homes. He knows that preparation, that attention to detail, creates legacy. So ask yourself, what code do you live by? Or are you drifting? If someone followed you for a week, what would your behavior reveal? Raise your code. Let your life be a reflection of it. Stop trying to raise your ceiling. Raise your floor. Most people focus on lofty goals, but the real shift happens when you raise the minimum, when you decide the worst version of you still honors discipline, still lives with dignity, still moves with purpose. Excellence is not about ambition. It's about consistency. It's about holding yourself to such a high floor that even your bad days would impress others. Your worst day should still mean reflection, writing, preparation, not laziness, not collapse. Can your fallback be reading instead of scrolling, speaking with calm instead of anger? Imagine a soldier polishing his boots even after a grueling march. He doesn't say, I'm too tired. He says, this is the standard, that's the level, that's the mindset. If you raise your lowest point by even 20%, your entire life can transform by 200%. Refuse to collapse. Even your stumbles can hold strength. Your floor becomes the quiet architect of your destiny. And here's the beauty. When you raise your standard, you attract others who rise. Standards draw strength. They repel weakness. You become a lighthouse, not because you shout, but because you refuse to go dim. A man of standards doesn't seek approval. He commands respect through the life he lives. And while others may mock you, misunderstand you, even try to shake you, the right people The ones with fire in their spirit will see you, because strength recognizes strength. The moment you raise your standard, you send out a signal. This is who I am. This is what I allow. The weak will call it arrogance, but the wise will call it alignment. Not none will be drawn to you, nor should they be. The right ones will find you because you no longer chase validation. You build value. You become a monument to principle, not popularity. Trends fade. Principles remain. And when you live by them, you won't need to demand loyalty. You'll inspire it. You won't beg for respect. You'll radiate it. All of this begins with refusal. Refusing to laugh at mediocrity. Refusing to remain silent when truth is needed. Refusing to keep people around who weaken your mission. Silence in the face of compromise is not peace. It's passivity. And passivity is poison. To live by standard is to live with clarity. Your yes has weight. Your no builds walls. Even if it costs comfort, it earns power, and power builds kingdoms. Think of the captain of a ship. Would he allow a crew that disrespects order to sail with him? No, because the sea doesn't forgive the careless. Life doesn't either. A man of standard chooses his crew by code, not popularity. So look around. Who is lifting you? Who is holding you back? What behaviors have chipped away at your strength while you look the other way? What if your standards became the lens through which you rebuilt your world? Here lies the deeper truth. You were not made to blend in. You were born to rise. And when you rise, you show others what's possible. You become a mirror, a path, a call to something greater. If you live by code, not comfort, you become more than a man. You become a symbol, a leader, a legacy. Do not lower the bar to make others feel safe. Raise it and see who grows to reach it. That's how movements begin. That's how leaders emerge. Pain is fleeting. Standards endure. Comfort is an illusion. It blows away with the first strong wind. But a man who lives by standard, he builds something the world cannot shake. He doesn't bend to emotion, fashion, or fear. He is anchored by decision. He doesn't wait for struggle to define him. He decides who he is before the storm hits. Strength is not created in the storm. It is revealed there. The man who endures the tempest is the one who trained when the skies were clear. Yes, pain will come. Delay will test you. Doubt will whisper. But none of them can move a man who is already chosen. He does not ask, should I keep going when things get hard? He answered that question long ago. That's where greatness is born, in the quiet choice, in the moment when quitting is easy, but you keep going. The man who waits for pressure will crumble, but the man who prepares, who builds his code in the silence, he will conquer. Think of the blacksmith. He does not forge the blade in comfort. He works in fire. Sparks fly. Iron resists, but he does not flinch because he knows the weapon is worth it. What fire have you been avoiding? What calling have you delayed because it demands more from you than comfort can offer? Be honest, and then make the decision. Decide once and for all, I do not break. That decision becomes your vault, your core, your fortress, and inside it, you store your character, your courage, your greatness. Guard it, feed it, protect it from the ease that kills ambition. Because comfort lies. It says you're fine when you're falling. But character echoes through time. It outlives trends. It lives on in the people you lift, the work you do, the standard you kept. So I ask again, are you building a life of comfort or a life of character? You cannot have both. Your standards don't confine you. They free you. They don't weigh you down. They give you wings. They separate you from the crowd. They give you reason to rise when everything else says to lie down. Set yours high. Set them now. And when the storm comes, and it will, you won't hesitate. You'll move. You'll lead. Because you already decided who you are. That is the mark of a man who conquers the seasons. And let this be clear. Your standards are not meant to be hidden. They are not private beliefs kept in a journal. They are to be lived, seen, felt. A man of conviction doesn't whisper his values. He walks them. They speak louder than words, louder than opinions. To build quietly but live loudly is not arrogance. It's integrity. It's the unmistakable echo of a man whose life is aligned. Let your actions speak so clearly that no one ever has to ask what you stand for. Let them know by how you rise. Others can hear it without a word. The truth of who he is arrives before he does. There's no confusion, no guessing, no need to explain. His strength doesn't shout. It's evident in the life he lives. That's the power of consistency. You don't have to convince people when your standard speaks for itself, but a standard you keep hidden won't protect you when the storm comes. It won't guide you in chaos or inspire others to follow your lead. Values kept in the dark are the first to be compromised when life applies pressure, but once declared, once made visible, audible, and lived, they bind you, and that bond becomes your armor. So how do you bring your standard into the light? You live it, every day, every moment, especially when it's hard, not just in your words, but in your actions, through discipline, through sacrifice, through showing up when it's painful, standing tall when it's lonely, and staying committed when quitting would feel like relief. If you say you value discipline, let it be seen in your morning routine, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you follow through. If you claim excellence, prove it in the smallest details, how you finish what you start, how you treat others, how you recover when things fall apart, especially when no one's watching, especially when no one's applauding. Imagine a teacher stepping into a room. His clothes are pressed, his shoes polished, his posture proud. He doesn't raise his voice, yet the room falls silent, not out of fear, but out of respect for the standard he embodies. He doesn't just teach a code, he lives it, and that standard lifts the entire room. Your presence should do the same. Your values should walk ahead of you. They should echo in the space long after you've gone, not because you spoke them, but because you lived them. Now imagine what would change if everyone around you knew your standards. Clearly, visibly, undeniably. How would your workplace shift? Your family? Your friendships? What if your integrity wasn't just a principle you carried, but a presence others felt? Beliefs hidden in silence fade, but when lived out loud with consistency and dignity, they inspire, they last. They build legacies that outlive applause. Don't settle for private convictions. Let your life preach your values. Let your habits speak for you, because the man who lives his code out loud doesn't just change himself, he changes everything around him. But understand this, standards must be set in advance. You can't build your character in the moment of temptation. That's too late. You can't decide who you are when everything's on the line. That decision must already be made, alone in the quiet long before the storm hits. The man who tries to think his way through a crisis will falter, but the man who's already chosen his response, he stands. That's the power of predetermined decision. No hesitation, no second guessing, no mental courtroom debating what's right. Just clarity, just action, just strength. You must decide now how you respond when tested. When insulted, will you retaliate or remain composed? When exhausted, will you cut corners or finish with honor? What will you never tolerate from yourself, from others, from life? Because if you don't set your own code, the world will hand you one. And the world doesn't reward the undecided, it devours them. It pulls them into compromise, into chaos. Predetermined decisions aren't about control, they're about freedom. The man who already knows what he'll do isn't a slave to impulse. He's not swayed by circumstance. He walks into every situation with the calm authority of someone who's already chosen. Think of a judge entering a courtroom, not to wonder what justice might be, but to uphold what justice is. His laws are clear. His standard is unshakable. Because of that, order reigns. Now ask yourself, where in your life are decisions still open? Where are you still negotiating with your lower self, saying, I'll decide in the moment, knowing the moment is when you're weakest? The man who decides ahead of time, he walks in strength. He's trusted because he trusts himself. But the man who waits, he reacts. He apologizes. He floats through life without building anything lasting. Every day you delay is a day you hand your power to circumstance. You become a man on loan to the moment. But that ends with one act, decision. Decide now. Decide who you are. Decide what you will never tolerate. Decide what you rise for and what you'll never bow to. And once you've made that decision, never borrow again, because a man of predetermined principles can't be bought. He can't be broken. He can't be bullied. He is rooted. And in a world that bends, he stands. Consistency is what builds true power. It's not what you do once that defines you. It's what you return to, again and again. Greatness isn't born in rare sparks of brilliance. It's forged in the quiet, steady rhythm of daily discipline. The extraordinary man didn't stumble into greatness. He chose it, one decision at a time. Think of the oak tree. It doesn't appear overnight. It grows inch by inch, season after season, roots deepening in silence. Think of the blacksmith. He doesn't craft a sword in one strike. He hammers, folds, refines until the steel becomes something formidable, and your life will not be transformed by a single moment of inspiration. It will be forged through repetition, through persistence, through doing the right thing long enough for it to become who you are. This is the hidden truth. Consistency is the engine behind all success. It isn't glamorous, it isn't loud, but it moves mountains. It creates habits. Habits build confidence. Confidence shapes identity. And once your identity shifts, your destiny follows. A man who shows up every day becomes unbeatable, not because he's the most talented, but because he's still there when others have quit. He doesn't need motivation. He has momentum. His actions flow, not from force, but from identity. Picture the farmer. He waters the soil day after day, week after week. Nothing sprouts, no applause. His neighbors laugh. They call it a waste. But he isn't working for applause. He's working for harvest. And when the season changes, his field will bloom. Theirs will not. The same is true for you. What are your daily habits building? Resilience or regret? Are you rehearsing excellence or excuses? Excellence isn't a single act. It's a pattern, built in silence, refined in exhaustion, proven over time. If you wait to feel ready, you'll never master anything. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never start. Set a standard you can repeat, something small, something clear, something consistent. Then do it until it becomes second nature, because the man who repeats the right thing long enough, with enough heart, becomes a force that cannot be stopped. Until your mind stops resisting and your surroundings begin to align with your actions, keep going. Remember, consistency doesn't just change what you do, it reshapes who you believe you are. Every repetition casts a vote for the man you're becoming. Every disciplined act is another brick laid in the foundation of your character. You don't need perfection. You need persistence. You don't need certainty about the destination. You need faith in the process. And once that process becomes your way of life, the results will follow like shadows. So begin quietly, humbly, but deliberately. Begin again today, and again tomorrow, and again the day after that. Because the man who keeps showing up when no one is watching, who remains long after others have faded, is the one who earns what others only dream of. That is the quiet power of consistency, and it's within your reach right now. Standards are the bridge between vision and reality. A dream without a standard is just a fantasy. It might ignite the imagination, stir emotion, even bring comfort, but without a guiding code, it floats aimlessly like a ship without a rudder. When a dream is anchored to a standard, a personal code of conduct, a rule of living, it becomes a blueprint. And when that blueprint is honored through daily discipline, the impossible becomes possible. The intangible becomes real. Success isn't handed out. It's built brick by brick, habit by habit, over time. And the material you use to build it, your standards. They shape your speech, your work ethic, your ability to rise after failure. A vision can show you the destination, but your standards keep your hands steady on the wheel when storms hit. Without standards, ambition fades under pressure, wilts under fatigue, and whispers instead of roars. But when a man lives by a clear, non-negotiable standard, distance collapses, chaos becomes clarity. The mountain becomes manageable because he isn't driven by emotion. He's led by a code. A clear vision paired with unwavering discipline becomes an unstoppable force. You cannot stop a man who has both purpose and practice. His steps are guided by meaning, and his hands are trained by consistency. So ask yourself, what kind of future do you truly want? Be bold, be specific, then ask, what kind of man does it take to build that future? What character does he hold? What habits does he honor at sunrise? What integrity does he guard in the dark? because you will never outgrow your character. Your dreams will never rise higher than your standards, that is the limit, and the launch pad. Think of the architect sketching a cathedral, its soaring ceilings, its majestic arches. The vision is breathtaking, but vision alone can't raise the walls. Without standards, measurements, proportions, rules, the drawing remains just ink on paper. But when those lines are governed by precision, the cathedral begins to rise. That's what standards do. They give form to your dreams. They shape your energy into structure. So where in your life have you been hoping instead of building? What parts of your vision have you left to emotion instead of execution? Where are you drifting when you could be directing? The framework of your future is built in the mundane, daily decisions, unshakable rules, consistent values, and once you declare them, once you say, "This is what I demand of myself," the world will begin to adapt to your command. You don't need a new dream, you need a higher standard, one that elevates your mornings, sharpens your thinking, and strengthens your resolve. Raise it, write it, live it, and watch how your dream shifts from distant to tangible. Because the man who lives by a standard doesn't wait for the future, he constructs it. Your standard is your silent sermon. Words can be forgotten, speeches fade, but how you live, that's unforgettable. In a world saturated with noise, it's not the loudest voice that commands attention, it's the strongest example. And when your example is rooted in principle and consistency, it becomes legacy. People aren't moved by explanations. They're moved by demonstration. Change doesn't come from lectures. It comes from leadership. If you want to influence others, don't shout louder. Live better. Let your actions do the talking. Let your daily choices become the most powerful message in the room. Anyone can say the right thing, but only a few live it. Be the message. Let your discipline be your argument. Let your effort be your proof. Let your grace speak louder than correction. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a stage to make an impact. You don't need a spotlight to shine. You need a standard. And if you live by it, with quiet resolve and relentless consistency, people will notice. They always notice who shows up early, who works with care, who listens deeply, who acts with silent strength. Think of the stone cutter alone in the quarry, hammering day after day. No crowd, no praise, just the chisel and the stone. Yet every strike is a song of greatness. Passers-by may not understand the work, but they feel the weight of his devotion. That's leadership. Not by force, but by fidelity. Not by noise, but by example. So build your life with intention. Shape your days with purpose, and let your standard be the voice that echoes long after you've gone. You don't earn influence by shouting the loudest. You earn it by living the most clearly. You don't beg for respect, you embody it. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, how you show up day after day, that's the message the world hears. Ask yourself honestly, if your life were the only sermon someone ever listened to, what truth would they walk away with? Because the power to change the world doesn't begin out there, it begins in here within. It begins in the quiet moments when no one's watching, when praise is absent and applause is silent. That's where your standard is forged. Raise it, uphold it in solitude, defend it even when it costs you. And over time, your life becomes a signal fire, unshakable, undeniable, a guiding light for those still searching in the dark. Because the loudest presence in any room is not always the one speaking. It's often the one living with such unwavering integrity that you feel their presence without a word. The world isn't starving for more talk, it's starving for more truth, lived out, not just spoken. It's craving courage in action, grace in motion, leadership by example, the kind of leadership that doesn't need to announce itself because it's obvious. So let your daily decisions preach. Let your routine be your message. Let your effort be the evidence. A higher standard requires a higher level of preparation. You can't expect the rewards of excellence while living in the habits of mediocrity. Life doesn't give greatness to those who wish for it. It gives it to those who prepare for it when no one's watching. The man who sets a high standard cannot blend in with the crowd. He must do what others delay, learn what others ignore, and train when others rest. Greatness is not glamorous. It's born in repetition, in silence, in sacrifice. It's shaped in the early mornings, the late nights, the moments that go unseen. That's what separates the dreamer from the doer. You must live like the opportunity is already on its way, because one day it will be. And when it shows up, you will either rise ready or shrink in regret. Think of the violinist in his small room. No stage, no spotlight, just calloused fingers and silent commitment. Then the day comes, the curtain lifts, and he doesn't falter. He flows, because he's been ready. Preparation is the silent down payment on public greatness. So, where are you unprepared for the life you claim you want? What are you leaving to chance, to fate, to future you? What would change if you trained like the door could open tomorrow? Excellence rewards those who stay ahead, not those who wait to catch up. It honors those who believe so fully in their purpose that they prepare in advance. Don't wait for the invitation. Don't wait for permission. Train now. Build now. Because the version of you that's coming, the one that must carry greatness, he's counting on who you are today. The moment will arrive. The opportunity will knock. And when it does, the only question will be, were you ready? And understand this, raising your standard comes with a price. You can't bring everything with you. Some things must be left behind. Habits, beliefs, relationships, they may have served you once, but they may be anchoring you now. Elevation requires elimination. The man who climbs doesn't pack for the valley. He leaves behind what once felt necessary, because he knows the peak demands a different version of him. It will hurt, you'll feel the sting of letting go, but the pain of growth is far lighter than the weight of regret. It's better to bleed now for a future you believe in than to ache forever over one you forfeited. Audit your life. What's slowing you down? What's clouding your clarity? What voices speak to your weakness instead of your potential? Growth isn't just about adding, it's about releasing. Before your life multiplies, it must simplify. Before your future expands, your present must be refined. Raise your standard, then remove what doesn't meet it. Cut away the excess. Choose clarity over comfort. You're not abandoning your past. You're honoring your future. You're making space for the man you're becoming. That takes courage. Courage to say, this no longer serves me. Courage to part ways with compromise. Your destiny cannot be reached while you're holding hands with what's holding you back. You must choose what stays, what goes, and then move lighter, faster, with more focus. Because the man who climbs isn't the one with the most. He's the one who carries only what's essential. Let go and rise. Your environment, too, reflects your standard. The space you occupy is not background. It's a mirror. It speaks. A man who lives in order, clarity, and beauty doesn't do so to impress, does so to express. He's telling the world, this is who I am. This is what I expect. But a man who tolerates chaos, clutter, and disarray is declaring just as boldly, this is what I'll settle for. Your environment trains you. It either fuels your discipline or dulls your edge. You must build a sanctuary for your mission, a space that pulls you upward. If your environment weakens you, change it. Not later. Now. Remove what's broken. Clean what's stained. Eliminate what insults your future. Surround yourself with tools, not temptations. With inspiration, not distractions. Because what you see every day begins to shape what you believe, and what you believe shapes what you become. You're not just living in a room, you're living inside a reflection. Your desk, your walls, your calendar, your digital world, they all preach, they all echo back your standard. And if you don't like the message they send, rewrite it. This is your space, your mission, your moment. Set the standard, then become the man who lives by it. Not sometimes, not when it's easy, but always. Because success is not random. It is the natural result of a man who prepared relentlessly and lived relentlessly, all by the standard he refused to lower. Do they shout excellence or whisper apathy? Do they lift you higher or quietly anchor you to where you've always been? Imagine for a moment someone walks into your life unannounced and is asked to judge how serious you are about your future, not by your words but by your surroundings. What would they see? What would they feel? Walk into the study of a great leader and what do you find? Stillness. Purpose. Books aligned like thoughts ready to serve. Notes prepared. No clutter. No chaos. just the quiet authority of someone who respects their own journey. He hasn't spoken a single word, yet you already believe in him. You know this is a man on a mission. Now ask yourself, what does your space say about you? Does it reflect drive, intention, vision, or does it tell a story of delay, distraction, and drift? Your environment may not be everything, but it is the opening act. It sets the stage for the life you're building. It becomes the training ground where discipline is forged. Soon, what surrounds you begins to seep into what fuels you. Want clarity in your thoughts? Sit in clarity. Want depth in your thinking? Eliminate disorder. Want courage in your actions? Then surround yourself with reminders of the life you're creating. Let your space become a mirror to your future. Let it speak your standard before you ever open your mouth, because what you allow around you doesn't just linger. It enters, it shapes, it directs, and it will either push you forward or quietly hold you back. So choose right now what stays, what goes, what gets elevated. Turn your space into a signal, a sermon, a standard, and you'll watch the shift happen not just around you, but within you. Because standards are more than preferences. They are the foundation of self-respect. A man cannot look himself in the eye if he continuously breaks his own word. Every time you promise and don't deliver, every time you settle for just this once, you weaken that inner voice, the one you need the most. And when that voice grows quiet, so does your belief in yourself. Your ability to lead, to act, to rise, starts to fade. Self-respect isn't built on compliments or likes. It's carved in silence. It's earned in the dark, in those decisions you make when no one else is watching. And it's rare. It's powerful. It's the quiet wealth of a man who walks into any room not needing validation, but grounded in his own code. He's not perfect, but he's aligned. And that alignment, that unshakable consistency, is what gives him peace. When you start to value your own standard, others will too. But bend to pressure, abandon your line when it's hard, and the influence you once had begins to dissolve. People may still hear your words, but they won't believe them. They may stay near, but they won't follow. Because when a man loses his self-respect, he loses his authority, first with himself, then with everyone else. Picture a builder quietly laying stones for a structure that will outlast him. No audience, no spotlight, just precision, integrity, and care. He doesn't cut corners because he knows the strength of the whole depends on the honesty of each part. That's the kind of man you must choose to be. Every decision is a stone. Weak choices build hollow lives, but strong choices, held to your highest standard, build a foundation that won't crack. So where have you let yourself down? Where have you made a promise only to walk away from it? Where have you said, "I'll change," but stayed in the same cycle? This is not a call for guilt. It's a call for truth. You cannot repair what you won't face, and you cannot rise on a fractured foundation. So what would it look like to reclaim your standard, to say without apology, "This is who I am, this is what I expect, and this is what I do," whether it's praised, challenged, or ignored? You don't need the world's approval, but you do need your own. You need to know your own voice is one you can trust again. That trust isn't earned in a day. It's earned in the choices no one sees, in the habits no one celebrates, in holding the line long after the crowd has left. Rebuild your standard. Reinforce the cracks. Return to what you once honored, because the future you want will only rise to meet the strength of the man you're willing to become. And the man who refuses to betray himself is the one others will trust to build, to lead, to rise. Not with flash, not with force, but with the quiet power of a life lived in integrity. Earn your own respect, then guard it like gold. Because once you have it, no one can take it. You show people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. You are the first example of how the world is allowed to interact with you. Let disrespect in, and they'll assume it's acceptable. Tolerate lateness, and they'll assume your time is disposable. Ignore your values, and they'll follow suit. Your standard isn't just for you. It's your silent instruction manual to the world. This is what I tolerate. This is what I expect. This is who I am. Live with that kind of clarity, and others will know how to move around you. Speak with that kind of conviction, and they'll know you mean what you say. Hold your boundaries with calm certainty, and they'll rise or fall accordingly. When you lead your life with discipline and purpose, you show others what's possible. This isn't arrogance, it's honor. The man who values himself doesn't have to chase respect. He inspires it, and others adjust or they disappear. Think of a master craftsman. He doesn't scream about his standards, he lives them. His work speaks. His clients elevate. His presence raises the bar. Why? Because he taught them how. You do the same. In your friendships, in your workplace, in your home, you are always teaching, not with speeches, but by example. Ask yourself, where have you let others lower the tone? Where have you traded truth for peace? Where have you silenced your own voice to keep others comfortable? And what would happen if your very presence called others to a higher level, not through demand but through quiet, unwavering consistency? People try to change others with words, but the world listens more to your standards than to your speeches. A clear boundary is louder than 1,000 reminders. A man who respects his own time doesn't need to argue about lateness. A man who honors his values doesn't need to beg others to do the same. He simply lives them and lets the world adjust. That's how real leaders are made. That's how cultures are transformed. Not with noise, but with a life that refuses to bend. So take a look at your life. What line have you let blur? What standard have you softened to avoid conflict? What part of your self-respect did you trade for comfort? Now raise it. Speak it if needed. But most of all, live it. Let the way you move through the world become your greatest message. Let your consistency speak louder than your voice. Let your presence become the proof. Live it, and never lower it for anyone who won't rise to meet it. Because the man who truly respects himself teaches the world how to treat him, not through loud demands, but through relentless discipline, not through arrogance, but through quiet, unshakable strength. Don't ask for respect, embody it, not by trying to control others, but by becoming the kind of man whose presence makes anything less than honor feel out of place. Let your standards be your voice. Let your choices be your teaching. Let your very presence be a source of elevation, and the world will respond. Standards are not made in front of others. They're etched in solitude and proven in pressure. In the stillness of a quiet room, we make promises. I will stay disciplined. I will stay strong. I will not fold. It's easy when nothing challenges you, when the air is calm, when your mind is clear, but pressure strips away pretense. It exposes whether your foundation is built on stone or shifting sand. Words may feel powerful in peace, but true convictions are tested in chaos. A man who builds his identity only in comfort is unfit for battle, but a man who uses solitude to sharpen his mind, solidify his values, and anchor his standard, that man walks into adversity prepared, not because he's fearless, but because he has as rehearsed the war that others dread. Solitude is not a luxury, it's your secret weapon. It is in that silence that you forge character, shape decisions, and draw clear boundaries. The man who sits alone and dares to ask, "Who am I, and who will I never become?" earns armor long before the arrows fly. The man who waits until the chaos to decide who he is has already lost. Fire doesn't shape the sword, it reveals how well it was forged. If you haven't set your identity before the storm will set it for you. So, take the time, real time, time away from the noise, the screen, the distractions. Sit in stillness, let discomfort surface. Write your code, speak it out loud. Decide what you will always, and what you will never tolerate, because when the moment of truth arrives, there won't be time to think, only time to act. Picture a general who scouts the terrain before the battle begins. He walks in silence, studying every hill, every shadow, every potential ambush. So when the attack comes, he's not panicked, he's not flustered, he's ready. Not because he was lucky, but because he chose silence before strength. That must be you. Are you preparing when no one sees, or are you gambling on surviving chaos? Are you setting your standard now, or hoping you'll remember it later? The crowd cannot write your code. The storm is not the time to find your backbone. Etch your standard in stillness, and let the furnace of life prove it. When everything shakes, let the world see that you don't, because you were forged for this. There is power in stillness. There is strength in quiet discipline. There is glory in building when no one applauds. The man who prepares in silence becomes unstoppable in the storm. The one who waits for adversity to define him never becomes more than a leaf tossed in the wind. Choose to be the rock. Choose to carve your standard before the chaos. And when the test comes, pass it with strength, not because you are reacting, but because you are revealing what was already built when no one was watching. Because standards, true standards, build more than character. They build legacy. And legacy is not just what you leave behind, it's what you set in motion. You are not living for yourself alone. Every choice, every habit, every moment of integrity ripples into the future. The man who raises his standard raises his bloodline. His courage becomes another man's map. His discipline becomes another man's conviction. His example becomes another man's mirror. People are watching your children, your peers, strangers you'll never meet. And without realizing it, they will adopt what you tolerate. They will mimic your tone. They will absorb your values. Legacy is not measured in followers or fame. It's measured in the quiet repetition of principle. It's carved into the culture of families, schools, businesses, and generations. It is not what you preach, but what you live day after day, especially when it's hard. Your name becomes your message. Your habits become inheritance. Your standard becomes a signal to those who follow. This is what strength looks like. This is what honor sounds like. This is what self-respect feels like. What are you passing down? What do your invisible routines teach? Because someone is always watching, and your life, silent or loud, is delivering a message. Is it one of compromise or conviction, of excuses or excellence, of distraction or devotion? You may never see the full reach of your influence, but make no mistake, it is there. Influence doesn't shout, it echoes, like a craftsman whose tools are handed down for generations. Every groove in the wood tells the story of a man who valued precision, purpose, and pride. He didn't chase legacy. He chased excellence, and legacy followed. That can be you. Your name doesn't have to be just a label. It can stand for strength, for order, for truth, but only if you live in alignment with that meaning. You don't have to raise your voice to raise a generation. You have to raise your standard. You must live with such unwavering clarity that others rise when they're in your presence. Become the reference point for what's possible. Let your life be the blueprint for others to follow. Don't chase influence. Earn it. Don't pursue recognition. Build meaning. Live in such a way that your discipline outlives your breath, that your choices become tradition, that your principles find voice in those who come after you, so that one day, long after you're gone, your name won't just be remembered, it will be revered. They will say, "Here walked a man who stood for something." And because he stood, others learned to rise. That is legacy. That is power. That is the reward of an unshakable standard. Every man worships something. The question is not if, but what. Worship isn't limited to temples or rituals. It's woven into your habits, your priorities, your private decisions. And your standard, that's your altar. Whatever you guard, whatever you sacrifice for, whatever you protect with your time and energy, that is what you truly revere. If you make comfort your highest aim, then comfort is your God. If you betray your values to gain approval, then you've already declared your loyalty. But if you rise with purpose, speak with clarity, move with discipline, then you worship truth. You serve something greater than pleasure. You stand for something more enduring than popularity, and the world takes notice. You don't need to scream what you believe. Your daily actions declare it. The man who guards his time doesn't need to explain himself. His calendar is a sermon. The man who trains his body, sharpens his mind, and controls his tongue is preaching through presence alone. Like a monk sweeping the temple floor, each stroke a sacred act, every silent moment a declaration. You too must treat the ordinary as holy. Your day is not divided between spiritual and practical. Every breath can be devotion. Your life is a message, your posture in obscurity, your effort without applause, your character under pressure. These are the liturgies of your life. What are they praising? What do your routines exalt? Truth or convenience, purpose or indulgence, discipline or delay? Because worship is not just in raised hands, it's in raised standards. It's in the way you treat your time, your body, your word. And once that standard is set, defend it, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because when a man chooses to live with that kind of honor, his life becomes a presence, a quiet force, a walking sermon that calls others higher. So build your standard, make it your sacred ground. Let every word, every decision, every moment be your worship, not for applause, not for fame, but because meaning matters. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more men whose very lives whisper of something divine. Let that be you. Let your life become your clearest prayer. Because when the world shakes and others break, you will not. Not because you are untouched, but because you were built for this. That is the strength of a man who set his standard before the storm. That is the legacy of a life lived in quiet conviction. That is the power the world cannot ignore.